Hello, everybody! Today I have the pleasure of being joined by Paul Anderson, aka the Social Media Hotelier. Paul, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Leo. It's awesome to be back here once again with your good self. And I know we haven't done a podcast previously, but it's always good to see you. Always good to talk about all things accommodation, particularly accommodation and Instagram.
There's always something interesting to talk to you about, my friend. Tell us what crazy things have you been up to over the last few weeks, Paul?
So the last few weeks, I've been working really, really hard. I've got an app in development at the moment, centralizing all of my content and my resources so that people have an easy place to go and grab those.
I love it, and you're so good at it. That's how we met, and it's something it's something I wanted to do for a while. So let's jump straight into it. So I think it's quite obvious from your title what it is you can do for people, but why not build it out further and just sort of tell everyone in your own words what it is you see yourself as doing for property managers and hosts and hoteliers.
So I did pick the social media hotelier because I don't want to box myself out moving forwards. But what I do is very, very, very niche. So I help accommodation businesses leverage Instagram into their marketing strategies holistically. When COVID struck, like most people did, they sat back and thought, what am I doing? How am I doing it? Am I really got to grips with this and kind of reconsidered how they were running their accommodation businesses? And despite having been an entrepreneur since I was 24, 25, and always having a mantra of work hard, advertise, go back and advertise again, make sure everyone has all the advertising stuff, I realized that with the onslaught of, as such, of the likes of TripAdvisor and all the sites where people put reviews and feedback, I'd stopped pounding pavement and I'd stopped handing out trifold brochures and I'd essentially stopped advertising. I thought, that's not clever. So I very quickly Googled advertising platforms, how to do it cheaply and that type of thing. And the classics popped up. So Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Still don't really know what Twitter is, but I hear it's very good. And it was Instagram that really, really grabbed me. From a personal perspective, so when you finish high school here, you do A levels. Most people do, say, 3 or 4. I did maths, physics, economics, and art. And had I not done the art, I would never have been any good at the other 3, really. And Instagram presented to me a very broad, creative space within which to work, whether it was short videos, long videos, lives, graphic design, photography, that type of thing, in concert with all of the techie stuff that goes on behind with insights and metrics and understanding what's working and what doesn't work. So for me, it kind of married that matchup. And my wife would say I was obsessed at the time, and she'd probably say I'm still fairly obsessed with it now. But my enjoyment of that and my enjoyment of personalizing my brand and the creative dynamism that it afforded me shone through in my content. And so I saw follower growth shoot up, engagement rates shoot up. And so now for my guest house, which is Sandfield Guest House, all I do is create content for Instagram and then I post it to other platforms. Subsequently, Mark Simpson from Boostly then asked me to put together some training courses for him. And another lady, whose name escapes me, asked me to put together a presentation for a conference she was doing. And I suddenly thought, well, the guest house is still on shaky ground. We're kind of coming out of COVID. If other people are making money from me, then maybe I can be doing the same thing. So I do strategy, consultation and design, audits, one-on-one coaching, and these types of things. Principally, as a direct result of people constantly sending me direct messages to my guest house account saying, how did you do this? Why did you do that? Why don't you do the other? And I thought, well, this is getting into a crowded space, and it's my guest house account. I'm marketing my guest house. I'm trying to attract guests. So I set up the Social Media Hotelier on Instagram, and it's just grown from there.
Paul, very, very, very interesting. It leads me to ask you the obvious question, because I think there's a lot of, I think the vast majority of hosts and PMs have probably never taken a booking directly through Instagram. So why Instagram?
So Instagram is one of the top social media platforms for monthly engaged users. It's approaching the 2 billion mark. So it's a very, very wide top end of a funnel, which makes it an ideal place to showcase your property, your amenities, If, like me, you're more of a personal brand, you can start to communicate that and create a connection with people even before they go anywhere near a book now button. And simply, if you concentrate on your ideal guest and you understand exactly what they're interested in, marketing speak, they call them content pillars, but they're just topics that you know your ideal client is always going to be interested in, then you can teach the algorithm what it is you're about, when you post, what you post about, what your business is about. And it kind of flies in the face of most people's opinion that, oh, the algorithm is working against them. They're not getting the reach they want. They're not getting the likes that they want. And that's principally because people don't stick to the topics that their ideal guest is always going to be interested in. So if you consistently post about a similar group of subjects, and there's no harm in recycling and redoing almost exactly the same content. What this does is it shows the algorithm who you are and what you're about. And it's the algorithm's job to match that type of content with people who will always be interested in. So if you suddenly do, oh, it's my grandson's birthday, or oh, here's a picture of my dog on a beach, the algorithm doesn't know where to place it. So it's important to remember that social media platforms are not social media platforms. They are advertising agencies. And so the relationship between a creator and a lot of my clients say, I'm not a creator. I go, well, you are. You're making videos, or you're making graphics, or you're publishing photos. We work on behalf of Instagram or Facebook. So we create the content. The algorithms try and understand who's going to find that valuable and put it in front of them. And in so doing, the more valuable your content is and the stronger that match, the more paid advertising Instagram can put in front of people because they're on the platform for longer. So I essentially, when I create content, I work for Instagram, and the reward for that is reach. The other thing to remember, particularly with Instagram, is that you can't book a room, you can't rent a short-term rental, you can't buy time on a glamp site pitch directly through Instagram. And so it comes back to giving your ideal guest consistent value so that the algorithm can put your content in front of them, and you then funnel them through. So it's inbound marketing. You're not direct messaging people, it's inbound marketing. The trick then is to push them through your profile and onto your website, which is the only place really that you can get people to book, or if it's through an online travel agent. So reach by gathering up as many of these ideal clients that sit within this almost 2 billion active user per month top end of a funnel, dragging them or attracting them like a magnet onto your profile, and having a profile that gives them all the information they need in order to make a decision, then get them to hit the link in the bio, then they're on your website. And if you get it right, by the time they get to your website, they're actively looking for the book now button because you've told them everything they need to know. You are for them. You are dog friendly. You are family friendly. Your check-in times are, you have an EV charger or you don't. We do food, we don't food. They've got all that they've got all that info. So when they land on your website or your booking engine, they look at the dates thinking, I hope they have availability.
Very, very interesting. I love the way you've described it here. It's more scientific than I've talked about Instagram before. So it's very, I guess you need to make things abundantly clear who you are, what your values are, right? And you do that through, just to repeat what you said, you do that through the content that you produce and put on your page. And then your bio is just a simple message about what the business is to drive them onto your direct booking website.
Indeed, and it's also the place where what's now being called Instagram SEO sits. So common mistakes that I would see with people having their @handle, so mine is @Sandfield Guesthouse, and then repeating that in the username rather than using that space to directly target their ideal guest and say, we are a romantic getaway cabin lodge in Tennessee. Because people are increasingly using Instagram to search for places to visit, things to do, places to eat, places to party, places to stay. So much so that even if you were to tap the location link in someone's profile, it will take you to an Instagram map and it will show you all the content that's been published there. But just beneath that, there are tabs, and one of them is hotels and accommodation. You click that and it filters down all the hotels and accommodation businesses that are posting in that region, which I think is absolutely astonishing. It's in its early days, but by the time it gets there, people will see your profile, they'll tap the location because they know they want to go to, I don't know, Miami Beach. They hit hotels and accommodation, it's called, and then they've got all those people that are posting. So if you're one of the first ones there and no one else is doing it, you'll be the only person who pops up.
I love it, love it. So clever, and I think lots of people just don't know about this, Paul, and that's why they're not leveraging it.
No, and it's my obsession, and literally just properly geeking out about how that funnel works, how to make that journey from a post to a profile to a website as smooth as possible, so there's nothing to resist people moving through, and then adding these bells and whistles for discoverability. It's actually quite straightforward. There are a lot of little moving parts, but if you build the profile out correctly, it then just comes down to your content, because it's the profile that is the portal between all the jazz of Instagram and dancing dogs and people falling off buildings and skateboarding and all that. Get their undivided attention onto your website. They have to go through that profile, because there's only one place where Instagram will permit a permanently clickable link, and that's in your profile.
Your bio. Paul, really good advice. I'm sure people are learning a lot from this. Can you tell us the top 3 mistakes that you see people make when they're trying to set up a successful Instagram account?
Number 1, most short-term rentals, hotels and guest houses and bed and breakfasts will have had a professional photographer come in and take shots. And ordinarily, a professional photographer will take landscape images. What I recommend people remember is that 80-90% of people use Instagram on a mobile phone. They don't hold it like this, they hold it like that. And therefore, in order to maximize the entire screen's real estate, it's important to use portrait photos. So if you have a beautiful image, it's a landscape shot, the way Instagram will portray it, different on Facebook will portray it, will be the image with 2 massive black bars. And anyone scrolling through it is never going to peer into it. So it's important to, number 1, if you have a professional photographer take shots, ask them. It's as simple as doing that.
Yeah.
That's all they need to do. Go on, I'll take a few for social media, for Instagram, for TikTok, because you can sequence pictures, and dominating the screen's real estate. So I'm going to geek out a little bit now. If you use a square image, and Canva always says, "Oh, you click this button and it's an Instagram frame," then you will always get the end of the previous post at the top and the beginning of the next post underneath, which is a distraction. So if I'm scrolling through and I'm looking at a picture and I notice, Leo, that you posted, I'm going to want to see what you're doing, and I'll scroll on by. So by virtue of using a portrait shot, you fill that screen and you dominate.
Got it. It's very, very simple piece of advice, but very, very effective. And I doubt everyone's thought of that. So yeah, great, perfect.
Number 2 would be not posting enough images of your property, whether that's interior or exterior. So the temptation is always, if you're out and about and you've got a decent camera phone and you see a sunset, shoot that. And then people think, oh, what can I write about that? And they post it. Or a view, or local fields, or a local restaurant, or a local bar. What hosts often forget is that all of those things are common, not just to them, but to all of their competition. And so if you're using imagery and you want to stand out specifically to your ideal guest, not only is it your services and being a wonderful host and a lovely person, but it's actually the look and the feel of your property. So I would always recommend that people, at least 1 in 6, if not 1 in 4 shots, is an interior or an exterior shot, because otherwise you're just showing people what's around you, and that's common to all your competition. It's not come and stay with me, it's come and stay in my area, and it's more destination marketing. So increasing the numbers of interior and exterior shots of your property in your feed is definitely a good idea, I would say, across the board for all hosts.
Brilliant. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And the big one, and this is quite personal because it really ticks me off, and I used to do it. If I go back to my early posts, I used to do it. It's putting things like phone numbers, website links, URLs into either your captions, so the words that accompany an image or a video, or in fact on the image itself. simply because they're not clickable. So in so doing, if you were to put www.//http, what you're asking your viewer to do is get out a pencil and paper, write all that down, with all the random characters and the question marks and so on and so forth, and transcribe it somewhere else. No one who uses Instagram is ever going to do that. No one is going to spend the time to do that. Whether that's in an image, I've seen people using QR codes, and you can take a screenshot and then use that QR code within a phone if it's clever enough, but you're asking too much of people. And so my suggestion would be in the profile, in your business account, you can specify your phone number, your contact details, your email address, your postal address, and they're instantly clickable. So the call to action wouldn't be go to https:// go to my link in bio and direct people that way. People ask too much of their audience, they give them too much credit, when in actual fact you've got between 3 and 8 seconds to grab someone's eyes and their attention. They're never going to write out a massive website address with a tiny URL, bit.ly, blah blah blah. It's just not.
I couldn't agree more. It's so true, but I bet it's so easily done, right? You're just trying to advertise, but what a silly way to do it. I think they're all three really good pieces of advice, and if I'm honest, I think I've probably made all three of those mistakes on the list there. So that's a good start, yeah. And then tell us, for the people now who are gonna take action from this interview and say, right, I'm gonna turn Instagram into one of my best performing channels. What are your top 3 tips for getting started and doing that?
Content marketing and inbound marketing, so rather than sending messages out and trying to attract people that way, is always about them, and it's never about us. And as a result, it doesn't matter what the platform is, it always begins with your ideal guest. Some people call it a guest avatar, but it begins with your ideal guest. And it's a distinct individual. It's not a target market, it's an individual within a target market. And by identifying them, it's then a fairly quick hop, skip, and a jump to get to the topics that you know they're always going to be interested in, because you understand them and you know who they are. And if you can put a face to the name when you're creating content, you can always be speaking to that one individual. This does several things. It means that when you're creating content, you know what you're going to be talking about, and you can create a schedule as to when you're going to be talking about it. You always know that you're targeting and you're speaking directly to your perfect guest. It's not to exclude people, but it's to attract that individual and people that are similar to them. But what it also does when it comes to creating, what you can then do is go, right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write as many posts as I can about this one content pillar, this one topic as possible in an hour. I'm not bang out 8. And then go away and make a bed, or do your bookkeeping or your DIY, and then come back and go, right, I need images to back up the value that I've just written. And before you know it, you've got 6 or 8 posts done. So if I write a post from zero to hero, and I like to think I'm pretty good at it, it takes me about 45 minutes to go from scratch to publish. Mm-hmm. If I do an hour of writing, an hour of graphics, and maybe 15 minutes scheduling, I'd knock out 8, 10, 12. Because what it does is it focuses the mind. Instead of being a big blank sheet of paper, you go, right, I'm just writing and creating content about this one topic. And then you channel your creative energies into just writing, or just doing photos, or just doing graphics. And the workflow benefits are dramatic. So not only are you showing the algorithm exactly who you are and what you're about in a consistent way, you're also speaking directly to your ideal guest every single time you publish, but you're also making it easier on yourself by being efficient in how you go about creating that content. That would be number 1. Always target your ideal guest. And it's also, number 2 would be to remember that an Instagram account for an accommodation business is an exercise in marketing. All too frequently, I look at a guest house or a hotel's Instagram, and it looks like Uncle Johnny and Auntie Joan's slideshow. And here we are standing at the top of this mountain, and here we are with this view, and here we are. It's a business account, and it's important that people remember to use it as a business account, almost as a business in itself. And remember that what you're trying to achieve is marketing. It's a marketing exercise, not I've got this nice picture, I'll think about something to write about and post it up and hope that that's enough to draw someone in. It does need to be very specific. And the third thing, you did ask for 3, didn't you, Leo?
Absolutely. I mean, as many as we can get from you, Paul. But three is we don't want to give all the secret sauce away, do we?
If you get your phone out and you go to any Instagram profile, ordinarily you'll see that there are circles that separate the words and the contact us buttons and that from everyone's feed. These are called Instagram highlights, and they are constructed from Instagram stories. What I often see is people play with them and you get a whole string of highlights. 15 of them. I actually had a client who had 40 of them. And more Instagram highlights than they had posts. Like, no, they're highlights. But these are the perfect place to make decision-making information readily available to your next potential guest. And they can be pre-designed. So you get Canva up or Photoshop and you have 1920 tall by 1080 and you go, right, frequently asked questions. And you know what people ask frequently. What time can I check in? Can I park my car? Da, 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 da. And then you design a slide to answer each one. And then you have a frequently asked questions highlight. And then you have one with reviews. And then you have one with local places to eat and drink and local attractions. Any more than 4 or 5, and on a phone screen, remembering that most people are looking on a phone, no one's going to keep scrolling over.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really, really cool about Instagram highlights is that they have colours. So you can pick your brand colours. You might have 2, 3 or 4, and each of them is one of your brand colours. So when someone sees a post, and it's got your logo on it, say, and then they go to your profile, and lo and behold, is either your face or your logo in a profile picture, and then you've colour themed those highlights. Then when they hit that link, when they've read the information, they go, yeah, I really want to book. They hit the link in bio, and everything sits in concert because it's the same branding, it's the same colours, it's the same fonts, and it makes that journey absolutely seamless. And what you can do with Instagram highlights is use them to reinforce the branding so that when someone goes to your website, they don't feel like they've gone anywhere. They don't feel like they've left that Instagram ecosystem. But what you've very subtly done is you've grabbed their undivided attention, because there aren't going to be silly dogs dancing and cows running around and whatever it is that pops up on your feed. So Instagram highlights are the place to put decision-making information, make it readily available, and use it to reinforce branding. That way, when people get to your website, they haven't gone anywhere, and they've got all the information they already need, and they're looking for that book now button.
Paul, utterly fantastic tips and advice, top to bottom. I'd say the fourth tip for what you should do is call Paul and have him create a strategy for you. So, Paul, if anyone wants to find you, how can they?
So, whilst I'm getting this app sorted out, the best place, and I would be daft not to be all over Instagram as an Instagram expert, would be my Instagram account, which is at thesocialmediahotelier.com. And you'll see that everything that I've spoken about applies to what I do here as well as with Sandfield Guesthouse. You can direct message me, you could follow me. There's heaps of free value and just information, because what I began doing, and I will always continue to do, is try and give Instagram advice for hosts from a host. So go, have a little look, have a play, get in touch. You can book courses and all that type of stuff in there at thesocialmediahotelier.com on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Leo. It was a delight. I look forward to next time.